Vijayashree. On behalf of management and organizing team, I welcome her. I also request our principal, Dr. N. Harikrishnan, to introduce our speaker, Dr. Vijayashree, to the participants.
Good morning, Dr. Vijayashree. So first of all, thank you very much for accepting my invitation. I'm very glad to introduce Dr. Vijayashree Giridhar. Dr. Vijayashree Giridhar obtained master degree in pharmacology from Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, Bangalore, in India. She received her training at Nagatia University of Applied Life Science in Nagatia, Japan, where she earned a PhD in life sciences. In her PhD, investigated on targets, investigated on the molecular targets of tehembin B and isolated antioxidant components in Alzheimer's dementia models. She identified the beneficial effect of antioxidant formula in aging and dementia models. Then she worked as an assistant professor in College of Pharmacy, Erode in India. She has more than 50 peer-reviewed articles in reputed journals and has 100 book chapters. At present, Dr. Vijayashree is postdoctoral research scientist with the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences in the University of Texas Health Sciences Center at Austin. Presently, she focuses on the infection-induced long-term congestive dysfunction in experimental models such as meningitis and sepsis. I now welcome her to speak on the topic application of natural products on Alzheimer's disease dementia. So please, madam, please take it. Yes, madam, please. Quickly. Voice clear,
I'll go into my topic. So, is everybody could able to see the screen now?
யூடியூப்ல வாய்ஸ் வரல
இல்ல சார் இப்போ
இல்லை மியூட் பண்ணிருக்கீங்க.
Okay. So today I am going to talk about the application of natural products on Alzheimer's disease dementia. So since from 2004, I was working on I'm working in the natural products, and especially giving importance to dementia. So later, in dementia, so as Dr. Nandakumar was telling the impact of Alzheimer's disease. So there is a lot of things to be done in Alzheimer's disease. So my focus, I have paid my attention towards the Alzheimer's disease. So now I'm going to give the overview. So how I'm going to take you throughout the section. So here, first I'll be starting about the cognitive disorders. So what is dementia and what are the different types of cognitive disorders that comes under dementia and the different percentage of diseases present under the term dementia. And further, the Alzheimer's disease, the main focus. So what is Alzheimer's disease, the facts and the figures, and why we need to give more importance to this disease, what is the impact of this disease in the present condition, and the different hypotheses and pathophysiology of Alzheimer's disease. So I'll be discussing what are all the different hypotheses present for the Alzheimer's disease and the different drugs that is targeted based on the hypothesis. And further, I'll be talking about the natural products and their mechanism of action related to the hypothesis and pathophysiology, how they have its use in Alzheimer's disease. And then I'm going to, at the last part, I'll be discussing a few of my presentation, that is few of my studies in experimental models, whatever the different studies we have completed with respect to the Alzheimer's disease dementia. So first, the different types of neurological disorders. So dementia is an umbrella term. So you can see in the figure, it's an umbrella term. So it's going to be present in different types of neurodegenerative and neurological disorders. So if you look into the picture closely, I have given the Alzheimer's disease, the letters speak. So the more the percentage of people suffering from Alzheimer's disease, they have the dementia. About 50 to 75 percentage of reported dementia, it is coming from Alzheimer's disease. And next the vascular dementia, which is having like 25%, and next the Lewy body dementia, and then the frontotemporal dementia, and Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis. These are the other types of dementia that is present in the term under the term dementia. So what is dementia? So you cannot explain the dementia in a single word. So we can tell like memory loss or forgetfulness. But apart from that, you can see in the slide, like there is a difficulty in thinking and the judgment, whether you have a question whether to decide yes or no. So that part is getting affected. And language. So means we are talking our language from birth, but still we'll be having difficulty to get the language, to continuously talk in the language. So that happens during the dementia, and there is going to be a lot of problem in attention. You cannot pay attention when there is some particular task is given, and reasoning, perception. These are all the different types of component that is going to get affected. So which is called dementia. So you won't believe that in case of that is late stage dementia, late stage Alzheimer's disease. So when the people is having severe types of dementia, so they use the sticky note to remember the normal, the day-to-day activities to perform all the skills they need to have these kind of things. So in order to know like what is we usually like when there is a normal aging, there is going to be decrease in the memory. So you have dementia when you age normally, and you will be having the dementia when we have the neurodegenerative problem. So you need to differentiate. You need to understand. We need to understand what is normal aging induced memory loss and dementia. So I have given a few examples. Like I'll give some examples. I explain some examples. For example, like when you are talking with someone, if you forget some name or if it is difficult for you to get some word, so that happens during the normal aging. But when they have the dementia, so they don't only forget that particular thing, and they stop the conversation abruptly, and also they tend to repeat the same sentences. That is one example, and the other one is like it usually happens for us also, like what today's date, what is today's date, something like that, small things like we tend to forget, but still like we get it very quickly, like today it is Monday, today it's Tuesday, so we get it quickly. But those who are they face the dementia, that is mild cognitive impairment, so for them the recollection it's not happening very quickly, and not only that, they not only forget the day or something, they also forget hello, can you hear me? Something like that, small things like
yes, madam, you proceed.
But still like so you tend to forget the season where you are at. So these kind of very normal thing, it is affected during the dementia. And losing an item, that happens for everybody, like where we keep the things routinely, we tend to forget it. But for the normal person or those who are getting like normal aging, we recollect it, like okay, this place or that place, again we will find it out very easily. But for them, they not only forget the things where they keep, and also they used to keep the things in very strange places. For example, just take, for example, wallet or key, so that will go to the refrigerator. So these kind of like different things that happen during the dementia. So I would like to connect this anatomically as well. So if you see in the normal person, like when they are 25 years old, so you can see the darkened portion, which is called hippocampus, which is very important for the learning and memory of the human. So when it is 75 years, you can see a reduction in the volume of hippocampus. But when you see the 75-year-old person, when they have the mild cognitive impairment, they usually tell it as MCI. So it's a stage before the Alzheimer's disease. So during that time, you can see the reduction in hippocampal value in this level. But when they suffer from a severe form of Alzheimer's disease, in the late stage Alzheimer's disease, so there is a considerable amount of reduction in the hippocampus volume. So this happens during in anatomically when there is a dementia or Alzheimer's disease. What is Alzheimer's disease? So Alzheimer's disease, it's very complex. The important thing is very complex and it is multifactorial. It's not you cannot tell a single reason. So this is because of this Alzheimer's disease appears. So it's a multifactorial one and it's the most common type of dementia the world faces today. And it's a progressive disease. So once a person or a patient are diagnosed with the mild cognitive impairment or the presenile dementia. So it means there is no, you cannot cure the disease. At the same time, you don't have any treatment available to halt the progression of the disease. So that is the important thing to be noted here. So there is no cure. At the same time, there is nothing to halt the progression of the disease in case of Alzheimer's disease. And also the important brain regions, for example, prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, these are all the important brain structure that is typically getting affected during the Alzheimer's disease. What happens? So, most of the neurodegenerative disorders, so there is the abnormal protein that is present in the brain. So, in the left-hand side, you can see the different types of neurodegenerative disorders, neurological disorders I have given, and the different proteins which is responsible for the neurodegenerative disorder is given in the middle. So here we are going to focus on Alzheimer's disease and the amyloid beta and tau. These are all the two proteins, the abnormal protein that is present in Alzheimer's disease. So just I'll just briefly explain the history of Alzheimer's disease. So how it turned as an Alzheimer's disease. So in the left-hand side, you can see Dr. Alois Alzheimer. So he's a German neurologist. So he was examining a patient, Auguste Dieter. She was like a 51-year-old woman. And when he was examining her, she was having a problem similar to all this dementia. Like she was having language problem, thinking, memory loss, all these disorders she was presenting. So after 5 years of the examining her, like 1906, after 5 years she died because of the Alzheimer's disease. And then he got permission from her family, and he did the autopsy on her brain, and he found atrophy in her brain. Atrophy, nothing but the reduction in the volume. So the brain size is drastically reduced, and also when he tried to stain the brain section, he found this abnormal protein, that is amyloid beta and tau. This is the first time he made a report that the patients suffer from this kind of diseases. They have the amyloid beta and tau abnormal protein is present in these patients. And after in 1910, Dr. Alois Alzheimer's boss, he's called Emil Kraepelin. He coined the term like Alzheimer's. So after 4 years, it was termed as Alzheimer's disease. So now, to increase the awareness of this disease, so every year, the month of September, it's especially they will tell for Alzheimer's month, and also the 21st September of every year is celebrated as an Alzheimer's Day to increase the awareness of this disease. We take the global survey on the attitudes of dementia. So ADI is nothing but Alzheimer's Disease International. So they have conducted almost 70,000 people responded to the survey, and they did that in 155 different countries. And they found that about 62% of healthcare practitioners, they believe that dementia is normal part of aging, and about 40% of public, they think that they are not, they ignore the people with the dementia. And the important facts about the Alzheimer's disease, so I told that even when Dr. Nandakumar, he was introducing. So that time he mentioned that about the number of people suffering from Alzheimer's disease. So unfortunately, I have this presentation only in case of US population and the cost in terms of dollars. So, but you can see now we are in 2020, and they forecasted for the 2050 how much increase that's going to be the number of people suffering from Alzheimer's and also the cost of care. So it increases the number of the people suffering from Alzheimer's disease. At the same time, the cost of care is also it's more. So there is a critical need, critical urge is there for the studying of this Alzheimer's disease. And it's an interesting graph where you can see the world population by 5 years of age group. So if you pay attention clearly, like in 1950, can you see the pyramid shape? So when there is the population, like that is if you see the adult like 25 to 29, this is the number of patients in 1950. And 65 to 69, this is the number of people they were living in like after above 60. But as the age, as the year increases, so in 2010, if you see, so compared to the 25 to 29, there is a drastic increase in the aging population. So in 2050, so the pyramid shape is turned to the tomb shape now. So there is an increased number of people, they are living like after 60, after 70 and after 75. So increase aging is an important risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. So increasing in age is going to increase the number of people suffering from Alzheimer's disease. And also it's in data from Alzheimer's Disease International. So that is the growth in dementia cases by 2050. So these are all the forecasts they are giving, like we need to be prepared for this disease. We have to give attention for this disease. So hello? We are listening now. Oh, okay. Listening. Oh. Hello, can you hear me? Can you all hear me?
Yeah, ma'am.
Madam, can you slightly increase your voice?
Volume?
I mean, your volume so that others are complaining from the YouTube channel that the audibility is little low.
Okay. Is it okay? I don't know how to check. You can ask them like how they feel now.
Okay, we are
Fine.
getting the feedback, ma'am. We'll let you know. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so shall I continue now?
Yes, ma'am. You can continue, ma'am.
Okay. So as I told before, aging is one of the important risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. So during aging, what happens? So increase in age leads to decrease in the cellular and molecular functions. So that leads to dysregulation in the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of each cell. And that in turn affects the metabolic alteration and increase in oxidative stress. That in turn affects the neuronal loss, which further leads to dementia. As I mentioned before, hippocampus is an important area in the brain that is important for the learning and memory in the mammals. So here you can see in the human brain the hippocampal formation, and during aging what happens? So increase in aging leads to increase in the neuroinflammation, that is increase in the oxidative stress, and that affects the cellular synapses, and that leads to misfolded protein. So as I mentioned before, amyloid beta is one of the important protein misfolding that happens during the Alzheimer's disease. So that happens in the hippocampus. And also neurogenesis, that is formation of new neurons. So that is getting decreased during aging. And the synaptic plasticity. Synaptic plasticity is necessary for the normal communication between the neurons. So that is getting decreased during aging. And the dendritic atrophy is nothing but decrease in the branches of the dendrites that happens during aging, and that increases the apoptosis. So finally, all these things leads to reduction in the hippocampal volume, that in turn affect the cognitive performance. So here they have showed a Morris water maze. So usually in the rodent model, to assess the spatial memory, they use this behavioral task. So all these things affect them, that leads to age-related neuropathologies. Let's go to the different hypotheses present in the Alzheimer's disease. So the primary hypothesis behind the Alzheimer's disease is amyloid and tau hypothesis. So what is amyloid hypothesis? So beta amyloid is the protein that is also necessary for the normal that is physiological role. It has some physiological role, for example, neuronal growth and repair and so such that. But also it has a important pathophysiological role in Alzheimer's disease. Here you can see the amyloid precursor protein, which is getting cleaved by BACE and the gamma secretase, that is beta secretase and gamma secretase, that leads to the alpha helix monomer of amyloid beta. So when there is a continuous amyloid beta accumulation, that leads to the senile plaques. This is called the amyloid plaque formation. And next, the tau hypothesis. So tau is an important protein that is present in the microtubules. So that is important for the axonal transportation. But during the Alzheimer's disease, what happens? Hyperphosphorylation of this tau protein that occurs. So that leads to destabilized microtubule. So the destabilized microtubule leads to phosphotau oligomerization, which in turn leads to neurofibrillary tangles. NFT is nothing but neurofibrillary tangles. The amyloid hypothesis and tau hypothesis, what happens in the Alzheimer's disease brain. So you can see in the healthy brain how the cerebral cortex looks and how the volume of the hippocampus. So this is how the neurons and the communication between the neurons happens. But in case of severe Alzheimer's disease, so considerable amount of shrinkage in the brain. You can see the atrophy in the brain, and also the volume of the ventricles are getting enlarged, and there is a large reduction of hippocampus, shrinkage of hippocampus that happens during the severe Alzheimer's disease. So the amyloid and tau, so you can extracellular amyloid plaques. You can see the brown spots here. This is the amyloid plaques that is present in the extracellularly, and the tau, this is the neuronal, intraneuronal. Within the neuron, you can see the tangle formation. This is called the tau hypothesis. So amyloid plaques and extracellular amyloid plaques and intraneuronal tau tangles are the important component present in the Alzheimer's disease. So recently they have because amyloid and the tau accumulation starts in the patients, it is around 10 to 15 years before they see the symptoms. So now they have the techniques like PET scan, so where they have the radioisotopes for the amyloid beta and tau. So here if you could see in the healthy control and AD patient, the presence of tau can be detected. So when they start, like when they are in the mild cognitive impairment stage, which is stage before to Alzheimer's disease. So in that level itself, they can identify the presence of tau accumulation in the brain. Cholinergic hypothesis. I hope in this part you could. I think I can touch little your pharmacology in pharmacy. So where you can see. So we all know that in the synaptic cleft, we need the neurotransmitter to take the to get the communication in between the neurons. So here you can see a green dots, which is acetylcholine, so which is a neurotransmitter in the cholinergic nerve endings. Amount of cholinergic, the acetylcholine is very important for the normal communication between the neurons. But what happens in early AD? So you can see the considerable amount of reduction of acetylcholine level in the early Alzheimer's disease. So we need to increase the levels of acetylcholine so that we can see the communication, proper communication between the neurons. So how that can be achieved? So one is by decreasing the acetylcholine esterase level. So acetylcholine esterase is an enzyme that breaks down the acetylcholine. So if you decrease this acetylcholine esterase level, we can increase the level of acetylcholine. One is in that way. And also choline acetyltransferase is an enzyme that is helpful for the formation of acetylcholine. So if you increase the level of choline acetyltransferase, you can increase the level of acetylcholine. So the ultimate aim is to increase the level of acetylcholine in the synaptic cleft so that we can improve the memory. So what are the different drugs which is present as a cholinesterase inhibitor? So donzipil, galantamine, memantine, rivastigmine. So these are all the FDA approved drugs used presently as a cholinesterase inhibitor to improve the cholinergic levels. Next, the inflammatory hypothesis. So inflammation is an important thing that happens like even in normal aging, you can see this. So microglia is a resident cells, the macrophage type cells present in the brain. So that is very important. So whenever there is a amyloid beta deposit present inside the brain, microglia is getting activated and they are trying to eliminate the amyloid beta deposits. But when there is a more number of amyloid beta accumulated, so that itself activates the microglia. So more number of amyloid beta it's getting deposited. That leads to the formation of amyloid plaques. So inflammation, when it is turned to chronic inflammation, that leads to neurodegeneration. That is based on inflammation available. So usually the NSAIDs like COX-2 or prostaglandin receptor stimulation are used, but non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agent derivative, that is taranfluvel, there is no evidence for reducing the risk of Alzheimer's disease. But there is some drugs like A-beta immunization and TNF alpha. These are all the TNF alpha blocker. These are all the drugs presently under investigation for Alzheimer's treatment. Neurovascular hypothesis. Neurovascular hypothesis, like we need to understand what are all the different vascular component present in the brain. But the other important thing we need to pay attention here is the RAGE, which is receptor for advanced glycation end products, and the LRP. So that is the lipoprotein related protein. It's a receptor for amyloid beta. So what is the function of these two receptors? So maintaining the level of amyloid beta in the brain and plasma. That is the function of these two receptors. So to cross the PBB, the amyloid beta requires RAGE or LRP. So the function of LRP is to take the amyloid beta from brain and to the plasma. The RAGE acts as a receptor to take the amyloid beta from plasma to brain. So thereby the level of amyloid beta is maintained between the plasma and brain. Whenever there is an increase in RAGE, it takes more amount of amyloid beta from plasma and takes to the brain. And the increase in amyloid beta binds with the heavy metals like zinc and copper that leads to aggregation of amyloid beta. So there are some drugs that, for example, glioquinol, which prevents the aggregation, chelation between this amyloid beta and the heavy metals. Thereby, it prevents the aggregation of amyloid beta. So under neurovascular hypothesis, we have the drug that is glioquinol used in the Alzheimer's therapy. So these are all the emerging concepts of Alzheimer's disease. So how infection is related to Alzheimer's disease. So there are in different animal models, they propose that the animals that those has infection, they tend to have dementia in their later life. So whenever there is a bacteria or virus getting inhaled, so through the olfactory bulb, it easily reaches the brain. Unlike the other routes, when you inhale something that reaches the brain very easily. And we recently published a review, so in which we have given the opinion like infection as a hypothesis for the Alzheimer's disease. So apart from the different physiological role of amyloid beta, one of the important role of amyloid beta is it acts as an antimicrobial peptide. So what it does, when there is an infection, amyloid beta, it forms a biofilm and it engulfs the microorganism. So that is one of the important physiological role of amyloid beta. So the increase in microbes increases the level of amyloid beta so that it can remove the microorganism. So it increases the level of amyloid beta in the periphery. And also when there is an infection, as I said previously, RAGE is a receptor that is getting increased during the infection. So that leads to more amount of amyloid beta is going to be pulled over to the brain. and inflammatory hypothesis. So these are all together forms the infection-induced Alzheimer's disease. Brain-gut microbiome hypothesis. This is also an emerging concept. So to have a healthy brain, we need to have a healthy gut. So that is the main mechanism behind this hypothesis. So what they tell, when there is you have a good bacteria and bad bacteria in the gut. So when the disturbance in the good bacteria and the bad bacteria, that leads to severely affect the CNS function, that is brain behavior is also getting affected due to the dysbiosis, that is abnormal gut problem. So in case of so if you see here what are the different components that is essential for the healthy status. So you need to have your short chain fatty acids level and the blood-brain barrier permeability. So that is getting affected during the Alzheimer's disease. So increased gut permeability. So when there is a problem in the gut, it's going to have a leaky gut. So the leaky gut is going to affect the blood-brain barrier as well. So that is going to increase the blood-brain barrier permeability. When the blood-brain barrier is permeable to the different proteins, it largely affects the brain and the homeostasis. Drugs which is under investigation for the Alzheimer's disease therapy. So as described in the hypothesis, the amyloid beta and tau markers. So these are all the different types of drugs that is comes under Alzheimer's disease. And the enzymes that cleaves the amyloid precursor protein, that is gamma secretase and alpha secretase, those things. And the RAGE. So RAGE is the one which is increased during inflammation, during infection, those things. So that is also the drugs to inhibit the RAGE expression. So these are all the drugs are currently available for the Alzheimer's disease treatment. But although there are different types of drugs available, so presently there is no cure or to prevent the halt of the disease. There is nothing is available for now. So there are many investigational drugs like disease modifying drugs and gene therapy. All these things are presently under clinical investigation and clinical trials. So this is the time for us to look for some alternative approach. Alternative approach can be brought by different terms. So by means of traditional medicines. So not only in India we have traditional medicines, like even the Asian population, the Chinese traditional medicine, in Japanese, in Korean, they have their own traditional medicines, and the nutrients and the isolated plant components and probiotics. So these are all the alternative approach that are available for Alzheimer's disease. So before going to know about the different types of plant derived component, we need to understand why oxidative stress is important, because most of the compound what we are going to see are primarily they are antioxidant. So why antioxidants are important for brain? So that we need to understand. So we all know that brain is a organ. It recovers glucose for its energy. Although it weighs only 2% of our body weight, about 20% of the glucose, whatever we consume, that is going to be utilized only by brain. So we know that when there is a increased consumption of glucose, that leads to increased oxidative stress molecule. So ROS generation will be more, reactive oxygen species will be more. And here you can see the 13 different reasons why brain is susceptible to oxidative stress. So brain, it needs more energy in terms of glucose, so that in turn increases the level of oxidative stress in the brain. Compound like we are seeing here is resveratrol. That is it's a major source that is available from berries, groundnut, and also from the black chocolates. And if we are clear about the different hypotheses what we saw, so the mechanism of action is nothing but the same, like it reduces the tau level, it reduces the amyloid beta level, and it has antioxidant activity, and it also possesses the anti-inflammatory activity by inhibiting the microglia and the astrocytes activation, and thereby it leads to clearance of amyloid beta. So that is the principle behind the resveratrol in AD therapy. Next comes the curcumin in cognition. So curcumin, we all know that it's an important spice present in all Indian kitchen. So here we can see the different types of pharmacological activity the curcumin possesses. Antioxidant, it reduces the free radical levels and it reduces the heavy metals level. So as I mentioned, when it reduces the heavy metal level, the amyloid beta will not bind to the heavy metals so that the aggregation can be avoided, and it improves the neuroplasticity. So the synaptic plasticity is getting increased, and it possesses the anti-inflammatory property and immunostimulatory property and reduction of amyloid plaques. So pre-senilin-1 and amyloid precursor protein decreases and also decreases the cleaving enzyme, the beta secretase, and it improves the brain-derived neurotrophic factors. BDNF it is called as. So BDNF is an important neurotrophic factor for the synaptic plasticity. So that is improved by consumption of curcumin, and it also reduces the brain inflammation. So these are all the pharmacological property curcumin possesses. So thereby it improves the cognition. Ginkgo biloba in cognition. So reports from the Gargowri et al. They published that it possesses the reduction of the cytokine level IL-6, IL-18 and TNF alpha. Although there is no effect on these signaling molecules, it prevents the cytokine formation and thereby it reduces the neuroinflammation. Therefore, it prevents the memory loss, so improves the cognition. Is Hyperzine A in cognition. So it has two effects, like a classical cholinergic target and non-cholinergic target. So what is cholinergic target? So I have told about this during the hypothesis of cholinergic hypothesis. So acetylcholinesterase inhibition, it means it inhibits the acetylcholinesterase enzyme, thereby improves the acetylcholine level in synaptic cleft. So improve the cholinergic deficits, whereby it acts as a cholinergic agent. And as a non-cholinergic target, it prevents the apoptosis and oxidative stress and acts as a disease-modifying agent. In cognition, you can see the structure of the berberine and how it acts. So the first one is by reducing the ROS level, reactive oxygen species level, and it inhibits the inflammation and the apoptosis level. It reduces the apoptosis level, thereby inhibit the amyloid beta aggregation and also act as a cholinergic agent, like it inhibits the acetylcholinesterase, so thereby increases the acetylcholine level. There how it acts as a anti-Alzheimer's drug. The epigallocatechin, so it is one of the important compound present in the tea. So along with ascorbic acid, so this has been tested in APP-PS1 mice. So APP-PS1 mice is an Alzheimer's model mice. So what happens in this mice? So about 9 months, 9 to 12 months, you can see the amyloid beta deposits in these mice. So usually this model is used as an Alzheimer's disease model. So treatment of epigallocatechin for 3 months, it reduces the amyloid plaques and the neuroinflammation, and it improves the memory and learning processes. It has been demonstrated by using different behavioral tasks, and it improves the synapses level, and soluble and insoluble amyloid beta peptide have been reduced by the consumption of epigallocatechin. So you can see the structure of the quercetin, and ROS level, the primary action of quercetin is by acting as an antioxidant. So it reduces the ROS level, and that leads to inhibition of NF-kappa B and the further production of the cytokines TNF alpha, which further leads to prevents the mitochondrial dysfunction and the apoptosis. Thereby, it promotes the cognition. In cognition, so here it acts as an anti-Alzheimer's drug by preventing that is alpha secretase, beta secretase. It prevents this enzymes level, and also it improves the acetylcholine level. So it increases. So I told like two different parts by how you can improve the acetylcholine. One is by preventing acetylcholinesterase level or by improving cholinesterase level. So here it improves the cholinesterase, thereby it increases the level of acetylcholine. So cholinergic function is getting improved, thereby it acts as a learning and memory increasing agent. Probiotics in cognition. What is probiotics? Probiotics is nothing but the compound which has the living microorganism. For example, the yogurt what we consume. So that is also the probiotics we tell. So here they tested probiotic biotic 4. So that improves the intestinal barrier. So it prevents the leaky gut. Thereby it prevents the disruption of blood-brain barrier. So the blood-brain barrier permeability is also decreased. Thereby it leads to, it prevents the DNA damage and the important inflammatory signal NF-kappa B. Thereby it reduces the neuroinflammation. So by affecting the neuroinflammation, it improves the cognition. We can see some, like there are few natural compounds where I have obtained during my PhD and after my PhD. The research from this also shown to have beneficial effect in case of Alzheimer's disease model. So I have studied using Osimum sanctum and Shengmaisan, Shishandrin B, and Inonotus obliquus. So Osimum sanctum, as we all know, it's a tulsi it's an Indian herbal medicine, and Shengmaisan is a traditional Chinese medicine, and Inonotus obliquus is a popularly known in Russia and even in Korea and Japan. So Osimum sanctum in cognition. So how it improves the cognition? So these are the different pharmacological activities elicited by Osimum sanctum: cholinesterase inhibition, antioxidant, anti-inflammation, lipid lowering action, immune modulation, and neuroprotection. So thereby these are the different signals that Osimum sanctum prevent to improve the cognition in AD model. In cognition, so here we used, there are two different model we used. One is we induced Alzheimer's disease in a mice model, in a rat model by giving intracerebroventricular injection of amyloid beta. So we used using a osmotic pump, we continuously give amyloid beta to the animal. Thereby it, in the behavioral model you can see the cognitive impairment in those animals. And if you see the mechanism of action, so treatment with Shishandrin B leads to reduction in the RAGE. So RAGE is an important receptor that takes the amyloid beta from the plasma to brain. So RAGE level is decreased in case of treatment with Shishandrin B. That in turn affects the ROS generation, that is reactive oxygen species generation and reactive nitrogen species generation. That leads to the important inflammatory signal, that is nuclear factor in NF-kappa B, that affects the DNA damage level. So, and the apoptotic marker Cas3 level. So Shishandrin B treatment prevent all these things. So thereby it leads to neuronal, it prevents a neuronal dysfunction and dementia. So we have demonstrated this in one in when it's ICV induced amyloid beta model. Shengmaisan in cognition. Shengmaisan is a traditional Chinese medicine. So usually they use a different medicines in different composition to make a mixture. So that mixture is given to the animals. That is here we use the experimental model. We use the rat. So here they use the Panax ginseng, Ophiogun japonicus, and Fructus shishandrin. These are all the. It is mixed in 1:2:1 composition, and then it is given to the animals. And we check the level of acetylcholine, acetylcholinesterase, and antioxidant level, and the melandialdehyde level and nitrate level. So it shown a beneficial effect against the AD model. Inonotus obliquus, which is called chaga. So it's also called medicinal mushroom. So this is a type of mushroom that is present in the trees. You can see this black part. This is the mushroom present in the tree. So my professor was he was working in the collaboration with the different Chinese university So he used to get this compound. So that we have tested in animal model, and in the behavioral task, we saw the decreased latency time and increased time in the probe trial using the Morris-Water maze. And the different biochemical estimation, we found that it improves cholinergic activity and also reduce the antioxidant level, so thereby improves the cognition. 3,4-dihydroxybenzylalactone. So this is the isolated compound from the chaga, that is the medicinal mushroom. And this, it's not like it's a published one. It's just like we are doing this experiment. We have performed experiment not published yet, and it improves the memory. We did in the Morris-Water maze and the passive avoidance task. And the biochemical estimation, what we examined, we investigated were testing the acetylcholine level and the acetylcholine esterase level, and also we examined the antioxidant and the DNA damage level using COMET assay. We investigated the DNA damage level, and it showed the beneficial effect and it improves the cognition in the animal model. Of this presentation, like there are alternative approach available for the treatment of Alzheimer's dementia, and there are many compounds that shows potential beneficial effects, but still all these results need to be validated using the clinical model. So not only in EAD animal model, also in the clinical model it need to be validated, and then it need to undergo different clinical trials, and you can see the beneficial effect of these compounds. Thank you all for joining me, and I'll be happy to answer if you have any questions. Give my acknowledgement to the work where I have done in Japan, and presently where I'm working UT Health USA.
It was a very wonderful presentation, madam. We have asked the participants to post their questions through the chat box, and we have received some questions from Vinod Sudarshan. Is stress a reason for the cause of Alzheimer's disease?
Yes, it is definitely yes. I need to tell, and most of the cases like we now come across, it's like because now the recent different things that happening here that leads to stress, and stress is definitely a risk factor for the Alzheimer's disease.
Question by Wilson. More prone to Alzheimer's disease, when male or female, is there any gender influence on Alzheimer's?
Yeah, there is a gender influence. It's a good question. Like women are more prone to Alzheimer's disease. Neurodegenerative disorders, they tell like women. Yeah, and Alzheimer's disease especially, they tell more. They are common to, they're susceptible to Alzheimer's disease.
There is a question from Dr. Hema. Is there a relation between head injury and Alzheimer's? In what form these natural products can be given? So, two set of questions from us.
Okay. For the first question, yes, there is head trauma and traumatic brain injury, and the people like those who, especially like here, when the people like play like basketball, so those players are more prone to Alzheimer's disease, because when there is a head injury, so that leads to inflammatory signal. The inflammatory signals getting increased in case of this head injury and those kind of people. So they are more prone to Alzheimer's disease. That is the answer for the first question. And the second question, the natural products, how it can be delivered. So like my own perspective is to natural products always taken like the oral route is the best one. And but when they are isolated, when you isolate a single component from the moiety, that can be given in terms of other routes. But to consume, it's an oral route is the best route.
Thank you, ma'am. Vinod Sudarshan has asked one more question, I believe. Does consuming probiotics in daily diet prevent Alzheimer's disease?
There is no clinical evidence that shows that the consuming that to prevention of Alzheimer's disease, but it has some definitely has some beneficial effect. It's not only like Alzheimer's disease; they also connect probiotic along with psychiatric diseases, neuropsychiatric diseases, where the consumption of probiotic is helpful for the neuropsychiatric diseases and the neurological diseases. But there is no clinical evidence.
Madam, am I audible now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. When Pawan Kumar Chintamani has asked this question, Alzheimer's is multifaceted disease. How traditional medicine can handle this? Is the question. He has asked, Alzheimer's is a multifaceted disease. So, how this traditional medicine can actually, handle treating this disease?
It's a very good question and interesting as well. As the question being asked, it's a complex and multifactorial disease. So there is no like a single target like you can go and affect. So similarly, like traditional medicines, like you cannot when it is given as a whole, has different functional the pharmacological action. So when it has multifactorial, you need to give something that has a different types of pharmacological action to treat it. So when it is only single, then you can give a single compound. So the question itself, it has the answer. So when you are giving a traditional medicine, certainly it has different, for example, if you take your so I told like it has amyloid beta inhibiting and tau inhibiting, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and immunostimulant. So these are the different types of pharmacological action it possesses. So definitely it should be a good. Then you cannot tell it's a target, but it definitely acts for these kind of multifactorial diseases.
There is a question, ma'am, from Devi. She had asked, can you kindly suggest us the best in vitro method for evaluation of Alzheimer activity in an animal model?
எடிட்ல போயிட்டு எடுத்துட்டு இங்க போடுவோம் இங்க ஃபார்ம்ல போட்டிருக்கேனே நான்
In vitro or in vivo method, probably there is a question. In this model for animal model.
Okay, so in vivo method, like there are different. I cannot like suggest any one thing. So it depends on the like if they are going to evaluate on some drug, it need to be they have to select accordingly. But mostly like if you would like to see the effect of your drug, if they can work in the Alzheimer's disease, there are transgenic mice available. So even in my talk, like I told about the APPPS1, so this is one of the type, and TG2576 is one of the mice where you can see the Alzheimer's disease phenotype. And there are like if you want to see the Alzheimer's disease phenotype, very short period, 5x FAD, so 3x FAD. So these are the different transgenic mice models that are available. So you can see the Alzheimer's disease phenotype in these models in different stages, in early stages as well.
This is my question personally, madam. There are so many dementia. How do you actually differentiate the dementia due to Alzheimer from the other type of neurodegenerative diseases?
Yeah, it's a good question. As I told you, like how they differ from each other. The main thing is like if you see the misfolded protein. So maybe in the starting when I started my presentation, so I have given the different neurological disorders and the different misfolded proteins associated with this. So amyloid beta misfold is present in most of the different types of neurodegenerative disorder. But in Alzheimer's disease, that is more. And in case of Parkinson's, so Parkinson's, you can see alpha-synuclein is one of the protein that is misfolded in Parkinson's. So you have to give attention to that which type of protein is misfolded, and then you have to give it. But there are some cases, for example, in Parkinson and MSA, the symptoms will be the same. It takes more time for them to diagnose whether the patient suffer from Parkinson or if they suffer from MSC. But the typical thing is you need to understand, you need to identify the protein. That's why nowadays, like in Alzheimer's disease model, they do the PET scan. So in the PET scan, you can see what type of protein. If it is for the tau, if it is more tau and amyloid beta, that is they suffer from Alzheimer's disease. You have to know the misfolded protein, thereby you can tell what type of neurodegenerative disorder they have. Your question?
Thank you very much for that answer. And I think we have come to the end of the question session, man. I should actually thank you. There are a lot of appreciations and a lot of good feedbacks. coming in the live chat box in the YouTube. Probably on behalf of all the participants, I would like to thank you for that. And for to all the participants, excuse us for a moment, madam. So for all the participants, the feedback form, e-certificate form has been already posted in the YouTube live chat. You can see it just below the window. So this form will be activated immediately after the end of the webinar. So once you fill this form and send it to us, you will receive a e-certificate for your participation. And kindly note down the feedback form, and it will be active. Active only till 8 p.m. Today. So kindly fill it and send it to us. Now coming back to you, ma'am. I would like to request Mrs. Gajalakshmi to present the vote of thanks.
I am proud to propose my vote of thanks on behalf of 4th webinar series organized by Faculty of Pharmacy, Dr. MGR Educational and Research Institute. I would like to register my heartfelt thanks to Founder Chancellor, Honorable President, Honorable Secretary for all the supports they render to us. With around 250 participants through live chat, live streaming of Google Suite, has participated in the webinar series. I thank all the participants for their active participation. I thank our speaker, Dr. Vijayashree ma'am, for accepting our invitation and rendering our excellent presentation on application of natural products on Alzheimer's disease. Thank you, ma'am, for your kind presentation, and it was an informative session, ma'am. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Dr. Hemrata. At last, I thank Dr. Harikrishnan, Dr. Nandakumar, and I hope you all enjoyed the session. And I think if you have any questions, you can ask me as well in your chat. And thank you, one and all, and stay safe.
Thank you.